Joining us now on this weekend's political headlines, Mike Allen is the co-founder of Axios. We all want people to vote, I guess. Do you know how legal scholars are viewing this, Mike?
Yeah, good morning. 15 days out, election day, 2 weeks from tomorrow. So $1 million a day. That would bring Elon Musk very close to $100 million that he's put into the Republican effort through his America PAC. And yeah, legal scholars say that this gets super close. It's not literally buying a vote or a registration, but it's close enough that the vice presidential also ran, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, said it's very concerning, and the state is going to take a look at it. But Joe, I can tell you, Republicans see Musk as a very powerful force for them. So the reality, what we're hearing behind the scenes, and they could both be wrong, but it is a fact that Republicans feel like they have momentum. Democrats feel like everything is frozen. And part of this is because, we've lived through these elections before. Usually people are wrong and what they're seeing isn't real, but they feel like the race is moving this way or that way in this state or that state. Like political junkies are plugged in to the EKG. There's none of that movement this time. The states that matter are all frozen. The people who are going to decide it haven't decided to vote, so there's no way we can decide how they're going to vote. And so it's just stalled, but Republicans feel like they are surfing a wave. Musk is a big reason. Here's why. Musk is big with the young men, and Republicans think it's going to be young men. Democrats are counting on suburban women. And Joe, an important twist is that these young men don't just see Musk as a celebrity. Vice President Harris has lots more celebrities, Oprah, Taylor Swift, you name it. But they see him as a successful entrepreneur. That makes a big difference.
He's definitely an asset, you would think. Mark Penn, I don't know what Mark Penn is anymore. Obviously, he was a big advisor to Bill and Hillary Clinton. But he seems sometimes, I think he's actually pretty honest about things. I guess that shouldn't be a selling point, but he's got a piece today in the Wall Street Journal that says maybe Trump has some momentum now, has the edge, but it's still close, and don't count Harris out. He says just on immigration, inflation, and crime that Trump's ahead, but on just on whether you like her or not, she's increased her favorable rating from 38 to 49%, and still has. I thought this was pretty funny. Another major factor, Mike, this is funny, in Miss Harris' favor is the media spin. She viciously attacks Trump. The headline is Harris sharpens her attack on Trump. Mr. Trump goes after her, and he's escalating his threats to political opponents. So I don't know. It's 15 days. People are dug in at this point. Who's going to change their mind? I think Vice President Harris is going to do another interview, I think, with Haley Jackson at this point.
Yeah, she's going to be on NBC's air tomorrow doing an interview at the vice president's residence. Going to be campaigning again with Liz Cheney. And here's an important part of between the lines of what Mark Penn is saying. The Harris campaign has admitted that their research continues to show voters feel like they don't really know Vice President Harris, partly because of this compressed campaign. But they say that the more voters see her, the more they like her. And so now we're having a test of that. One more thing on Musk that will interest your viewers. There's a great story up on Axios by Zach Basu about America the Gullible, making the point that in this election cycle, journalists, billionaires, entrepreneurs, lots of people who should know better are falling for junk online. And one of these is Elon Musk, who is consistently tweeting, retweeting, Xing, re-Xing claims about voter fraud that just aren't borne out. There's analyses that show these claims are getting billions of views. And Joe, the why it matter for your viewers, the mega trends here are people don't believe traditional news, so they're paying more attention to what they see online. Media illiteracy, people don't pay enough attention to the source of what they're seeing. We're like, it's on X. It must be true.
Hey, Mike.
Mark Penn says that too. The mainstream media continues to do its part to earn the complete distrust of the electorate with its lowest recorded trust ratings ever in the Gallup poll. There you go.
100% true.
Mike, so let me ask you about that, though, because, J.D. Vance said about 2 weeks ago that one of the reasons he would not have certified the election, I don't know if you remember this, was this idea that he believed that technology, social media and the like, and other things were misinforming the public. That was actually one of his arguments about all of this. And I ask sort of, again, in this context of traditional media or legacy media and this idea of truth or lack of truth or lack of people believing it, how this changes the dynamic if one of the people who owns one of these companies is doing this. The other big question I have is, in the old media world, there was always this idea of trying to provide fair time to both candidates, right? On a, like an FCC-regulated television network kind of thing, right? How that works in the social media landscape and how it really works if you have a owner that is demonstrably outspoken about one candidate over another.
Well, here's, Andrew, where you have to take individual responsibility. And that is that if you just take what you're served, if you just take your For You, whichever platform it's on, you are going to get an echo chamber or one side. But you have to pay attention to outlets, including the ones that you work for, including Axios, that are devoted to finding the closest approximation to the truth. Axios takes a clinical approach to the news, clear-eyed, connected to all sides. And if you're a viewer of this show, you need to demand that, because this America the Gullible is a big problem. And it's understandable if you're just dipping in to social news. But the problem is that people are falling for this who should know better. And Andrew, one more thing about the legacy media. We were talking about how Democrats putting their chips on suburban women, Republicans trying to move young men. Who would have thought, Andrew, that your newspaper, the New York Times, on the front page would be talking about the bro vote? But that's where we are. Yep,
that is where we are.
15 days. It's almost too late. October surprises. I don't know. 15 days. What would move the needle? And we don't know what we don't know. That's the problem, Mike.
Yeah, no, it could be internationalist, where it's most likely to be flare up in the war. One other quick headline for the weekend. Andrew mentioned J.D. Vance, who started with a real popularity deficit as the old quotes from him surfaced. Very interesting polling in the last couple of days. J.D. Vance has closed that favorability gap. He and his Democratic counterpart, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, basically in the same place. Favorability, I asked his campaign why that is. They say it was all about the debate, that as long as people were seeing the media caricature of him, he was going to be unpopular. Now that they've seen more of him, and credit to him, he again and again has taken questions, has gone into hostile interview situations, basically is like, come at me. And looking at the polling, that's worked for him.